When I was a few years younger than I am now, I got into a pretty bad car wreck and went from having some money in the bank to being steeply in debt overnight. It also made me drop out of school. And so I worked for a couple years to get back to school, and that whole time I thought to myself, there has to be a way that I can learn to make money instead of working for wage all day long just to pay off a little bit of debt at a time as the debt gets bigger all the time. When I came back to school, as a result, I had switched over to studying finance. And then as I learned basic principles of finance and how money worked, I began doing my own research outside the classroom. Once the COVID-19 pandemic hit, I had a lot more time on my hands to sit and read, to watch interviews other people had performed, and then also reach out to some people and have some interviews of my own with professionals who were willing to speak to me about the subjects I was studying. When I was fortunate enough to become an undergraduate research ambassador for the Research Rookies program, I was granted some funding to turn my research into coursework that could then be communicated to other students, not just at NIU, but around the country. Because the large amount of my research had been done by me as a primary source and then documented, I was able to forego a large amount of the investigative side of this research project and then focus more on how can I turn this into a linear system of coursework, some bite-sized modules that would introduce students to these concepts in a way that's not just understandable to any undergrad student, but then applicable to any individual's life. As a result, I actually ended up paring back this project from its initial 5 modules and cutting the 5th module, which was all about real estate, off because it became a little bit too focused as opposed to less general. And so because we wanted to make sure that everything that I was teaching these students would be something they could use, my mentor really suggested, hey, let's cut this off and then focus more on getting students up to speed on these basics. So by the end of it all, we ended up with 4 modules that I've now been able to present on. The first one is called the debt mindset, and it's actually about determining the difference between good and bad debts so that one doesn't put themselves deeper in the hole as they're trying to dig out of it. The second module is called Keep What's Yours, and it's all about protecting the assets that you have as well as yourself from tragedy, whether that's liability or just depreciation, anything that could take away the value of what you've earned over the long term. From there, my next main focus was on how to build credit at a healthy rate so that you could improve your credit and get access to more credit as fast as possible without it becoming a danger for a pitfall or creating ethical or legal issues. And then in summation, my last one was all about comparing different wealth vehicles. And in my research, I found that life insurance may actually be the best wealth vehicle of them all. It might be the most effective and least destructive way to generate wealth over one's lifetime. So using the funds that I was granted from the Student Engagement Fund and then the access that I've had to just brilliant minds over the last 8 months plus, I've been able to slowly convert these into a series of coursework that can be presented, and then to further develop these for the long term, I actually held presentations here on campus for students to come give me their feedback, ask me questions about, and then use those to further iterate on the presentations I'd made so far. Now, because the work itself is technically not complete, I will be continuing this after I graduate. I have been given a gracious situation where I can continue to gain this feedback and then build it out into the digital platform that I found that'll allow me to then license it to individuals or universities over the future. And because NIU's been so instrumental in getting me to this point, my goal is to make sure that I cover bases that aren't covered currently in NIU's financial assistance office's resources so that I can then license it to the school for free, and then every undergrad student will have access to these pre-recorded lectures or modules, whatever you want to call them, as well as the accompanying data that I've accumulated. I couldn't have done this without the mentorship that I've received from several professors, several professionals, and then tons of books that I've read. There have been a lot of instrumental people throughout the course of this project, and I can't thank them enough. So I would love to say that I did this all on my own, but it's been a great team effort all the way through.